So, Celebrity Traitors Season 2 has been announced, and the big question is, who's going to be on it? There is some evidence that we can point to try and work this out, so let's have a look. Now, as we look at who I'm predicting could be on Season 2 and who is rumoured to be on Season 2, it's important to bear in mind that the producers are deliberately trying to find people that have not done a lot of reality TV shows before. So some of the usual suspects might not necessarily be good choices for this. I believe the producers are trying to find this middle ground between very well-known people in the UK, but also people who have not done a lot of shows like this. And also, they can't be too rich and famous that they would never consider it. Someone like Benedict Cumberbatch is probably quite unlikely. You know, he's very rich, 40 grand if that is supposedly the money that gets offered to the contestants. It's a drop in the ocean for him. And also, like, time commitment wise, it needs to be people that can give up like a month of their time. So there is a bit of a tricky middle ground there. They have to be famous enough for most people have heard of them, but not too famous that they would never consider doing the show. So that's what we're going to try and delve into. Firstly, there were several people that were rumoured for Season 1 and have even been rumoured to have dropped out or declined it. First, we have Daisy May Cooper and Charlie Cooper, who are real-life siblings who are the creators of This Country. These two were heavily rumoured before the series even came out. And supposedly, they dropped out last minute over concerns that the filming would be too much of a commitment considering they have kids back at home and you're not allowed a lot of contact with the outside world. Which does make you wonder, seeing as this series has done so well, could they be convinced to return? Likewise, Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, he was apparently offered a chance to go on Season 1, but he turned it down because of filming commitments. So that kind of makes you wonder, could he come back for Season 2? And Martin Lewis, I think, would definitely do it. He was on the Taskmaster's New Year treat the other year, and he was very competitive. He got very into it. So if he likes Taskmaster, he's definitely going to like Traitors. So I think there's a strong chance he could show up. Someone else who was heavily rumoured for Season 1, and I believe was probably offered it based on what we've heard, is Bob Mortimer. Bob Mortimer is, I think, most people's number one pick to be on the show, and I can see why. He would be absolutely brilliant. He would sort of bring that Celia Emery kind of charm to it. He's very lovable, he's very funny, so he's kind of the perfect candidate. And I think he's one of those people that he'd be great as a faithful, like he'd be very likeable, I think people would really get behind him, but he could also make quite a good traitor. So, other interesting people that said no. Apparently Liam Gallagher was offered a place on Celebrity Traitors, which is just crazy to think. He definitely falls into that too famous to be on the show kind of category, too rich. You know, the amount of money they must have made off that Oasis reunion tour. Yeah, it's hard to imagine him wanting to do Traitors. Someone else who said no is Miriam Margolyes, which is really interesting because I think she would be very good on it. Apparently she just had never heard of the show, didn't really have any interest in it, which, fair enough. And that comes to another like area of my thinking in my predictions for Season 2, is someone like Miriam Margolyes, it does kind of make you wonder if Celia was a replacement for Miriam, because they are very similar kind of people. Another interesting person who said no is Karen Brady from The Apprentice, and supposedly that was partly a filming commitment thing. You know, The Apprentice films in the summer, Traitors films in the summer, she didn't want to do both at the same time. But again, that gives you a bit of an interesting insight of the kind of person they're trying to find. You know, Karen Brady, she's quite well known to like a British audience, she's always on The Apprentice, people know her from that. So that does give you a bit of insight on the kind of person they're trying to find. Someone who's well known on another like big show on the BBC, but isn't necessarily Benedict Cumberbatch. So out of those rumoured people, I think Daisy May Cooper, Charlie Cooper, Bob Mortimer and Martin Lewis are all definite people that could pop up in the next series. Martin Lewis and Bob Mortimer in particular, I think Bob Mortimer they will be chasing really hard to try and get him on the next series, because he's done very well on Last One Laughing, and if it was possible for him to become more famous and more well loved, I think that did happen when he went on that show. So I think they will definitely be looking at him. Now I want to move on to rumoured names. So these are people that have kind of thrown the hat in the ring or have kind of mentioned that they've been approached. Ruth Jones from Gavin and Stacey, who plays Nessa, has supposedly been approached. Now this is just coming from like tabloid gossip and stuff, so we don't know if it's actually true, but she was on my list of people that I thought would be really good on it. She might fall into that category of doesn't have the time to do it, because apparently she's working on some new projects with James Corden. But she's like, I could really see that happening, so definitely look out for her. Someone else who has supposedly been approached is Gareth Southgate, the former England coach. And I can kind of see why. You've kind of got to look for people who have recently like left a job, left a big gig. If someone's just, if someone was like a professional dancer on Strictly and have suddenly left the show. Those kind of people, these reality shows are always looking for, because they're very famous people that have suddenly got a lot of availability. There's probably an angle there as well where they're kind of thinking, he's a coach, so he might be able to be like a team leader. He's got that kind of athletic side. He's a former like professional footballer. That'd be interesting. Apparently he's not said yes, but he's not necessarily turned it down either. So he's definitely one to watch. Other people that are rumoured are Dyer, who was also on my list of people I thought would be really good on it. He's apparently been approached for season 1 and turned it down. But when he was approached for season 1, he'd never seen it. And now he's seen it, he suddenly changed his tune, and he said on his daughter's podcast that he would actually like to be approached, and he's directly said to the bosses, like, let's talk about it. And I think Dyer would be a very good choice to have that family connection that they often do with Traitors, and get his daughter on as well. His daughter's also called Dyer, is kind of funny. And like, she's been on reality shows before. She was meant to be on this year's Strictly, but then pulled out. I think those two as a combo would be really clever. So those are the people that are just rumoured to be on the show. But I've made my own predictions for the kind of people that I think could turn up. And I've kind of based this on analysing this year's cast. And I think this year's cast definitely fall into some key categories. And this is something that's kind of come from my media production studies days. Because I once studied Bake Off for a essay, and in my essay I was analysing how the cast for Bake Off every year, it almost identically matches the breakdown of the UK population. So when you look at ethnicity, gender, age, sexuality, Bake Off pretty much identically matches the breakdown of our population. And I think a lot of reality shows do this because they want to make sure they're representing the whole country as a whole. And Celebrity Traitors, I believe, did this a bit as well. Because I noticed something interesting, that a lot of the home nations are kind of represented. So you've got Charlotte Church representing Wales, you've got Mark Bernard for Scotland, and you've got Ruth Codd for Ireland. So you can see that they're kind of picking people to represent the UK. I don't think it's an accident that Charlotte Church has been picked. I think they've kind of gone, oh, we need someone from Wales. In the normal series, I believe they also do a good job of trying to represent disability, and you can kind of see that in Celebrity Traitors as well, because Ruth Codd had a prosthetic leg. So I think that's another thing they look out for. As far as the rest of the cast goes, I believe they do break down into certain categories, which I'd say is national treasures, household names, sports people, musicians, actors, and comedians. And also clever people. I think that's something else I've been looking for. So let's get into my predictions. As I've been going through my predictions, I've been putting them into those categories to kind of help sort them in my head. So firstly, let's have a look at clever people. One of my key predictions for this is Carol Vorderman. If you're trying to think of people in the UK, famous people in the UK, that are generally thought of as clever, Carol Vorderman would definitely fit into that category. Obviously, it's not just about fitting into those categories though. It's not just about Carol Vorderman being a clever person. You've also kind of got to think about entertainment value. And Carol Vorderman seems quite funny when she's been on chat shows and things. She's both well known, but has also got the personality. Obviously, when you're thinking of Carol Vorderman, you then also thinking of people like Rachel Riley, Susie Dent. However, if we were kind of looking at those three, the kind of countdown three, I'd definitely lean more towards Carol. Carol seems very bubbly and funny and likeable in real life. Rachel Riley's kind of controversial. I believe she has some strong political views sometimes, and Traitors in general doesn't seem to want to get into the mud with that kind of stuff. It's very hard to imagine them getting someone like Nigel Farage in the way that I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here would do. I think in general, it's kind of a cosy show that doesn't want to get into controversial topics like politics. So I think it's hard to imagine, just in general actually, like it's hard to imagine them getting a politician on the show. There'd have to be like a very non-controversial politician. It'd have to be someone like Ed Balls, someone like pretty non-toxic. In my clever people category as well, I'm including Deborah Meaden. I feel like she's a strong choice. I think Deborah would be up for it. I think she'd find it fun. She's got a kind of like playful side to her. She was also on Taskmaster's New Year Treat of the Year, which people who've been on Taskmaster is definitely part of my thinking for this, because I think Taskmaster is a kind of similar show, because it's like a reality show, but it's not Big Brother. You know, it's not a show where you're on camera 24/7 and it's just about being yourself or arguing with people. Both Taskmaster and Traitors has a very strong like game format to it, and if you're someone who enjoys games, then you would enjoy both of them. Also in that category, and has also been on Taskmaster, is Victoria Coren Mitchell. I think she would be great for this because she ticks all those boxes again. You know, people have heard of her. She hosts a BBC show already, so she's already got that BBC connection. And she's a poker player. That's the most interesting part of her, I think, at least for Traitors, is if you're a poker player, you're going to have that ability to be able to tell when people are lying, and you're also going to have that ability to lie to other people. So I think Victoria Coren Mitchell is a very, very strong possibility. Then I want to get into the household names category. I mean, there's so many people you could pick from for this. I mean, at the top of my list is Graham Norton. When you're thinking about this year's cast, you've got Jonathan Ross, you've got Alan Carr. They're both chat show hosts. They're two of the most famous chat show hosts we've had in the UK. Graham Norton would be like the perfect combination of the two of them. So I think Graham would be good at it, and I think they would definitely ask him, but I don't know whether he'd say yes. That's the only problem. Someone like him is Lorraine Kelly. I think there's a strong chance that she's going to get asked. She might also have availability problems, but she definitely fits into that household name. She's also Scottish, which would be good to represent the nations. Yeah, Lorraine Kelly I think is a good shout. She's also quite like fun and playful. And yeah. Lorraine Kelly also seems to have a bit of a kind of dark sense of humour that kind of comes out occasionally, like when she's been on the last leg. So she could make an interesting traitor, because a lot of people would think she's just going to be like a warm, cuddly person, but they might not know that she's kind of got this sort of darker side to her. I mean, I might just blast through some of these people because they'd be very like easy choices for the show because people have heard of them, and they'd also probably be good value. So like Davina McCall, I think there's a strong chance of that. Ben Shepherd, I mean, they've got Kay Garraway. Clara Amfo from Radio 1. I mean, his name comes up so much for these things, but Rylan, I mean, he'd be great on it. Let's face it, he's very naturally funny. He's a natural presenter. It'd be a bit like Alan Carr in that sense. He'd just bring his A game. I mean, I think people are kind of sick of him being on like every show, but let's face it, he would be good. He would be good. Alison Hammond, similarly. She's on so much at the minute, but there's a reason for that, because she's always funny. People like her. I think there's a very strong chance of Alison Hammond, and I think actually Alison Hammond more so than Rylan. It just feels like the kind of person they'd get. Gabby Logan, kind of a bit similar to Claire Balding. I could really see that happening. And then like just kind of people from Strictly Come Dancing. It's like the other like top show on the BBC, so you can't imagine that they're not thinking about it. In that line of thinking, I think Shirley Bassey would be very possible. She's also done Taskmaster, and she was very funny on it. Oti Mabuse, I think, would be good. Anton de Beek. Like, these are just like solid people that people have heard of. They're entertaining, and they'd just be easy choices. I think, I never know how you pronounce his name, but Fred Siru from First Dates Fred. I feel like he's a good shout. I feel like a lot of people have heard of him. He's not super famous. It's not like he's in Hollywood films or anything. But a lot of people have heard of who he is. Similarly, Greg James from Radio 1. Greg James has also done Taskmaster. I mean, it's basically just a list of everyone who's done Taskmaster. Greg James, he's a very likeable person. He'd make a great faithful. I think he'd be good at the game. He does some very interesting, like, kind of meta things on his radio show where he'll, like, go missing and then the viewers, or the listeners, sorry, have to try and find him. He's done kind of escape roomy kind of style things on Radio 1, I believe. So Greg would be like, yeah, a very easy choice. A lot of these people are easy choices. Musicians as a category was a bit tricky for me because it is hard trying to work out who's, like, very well known but not so rich that they wouldn't ever do it. So, like, Chris Martin, I mean, everyone's heard of Chris Martin, but would he do it? Like, he'd have to be a massive fan of the show to do it because, again, like, if the rumoured payment that the celebrities get is true, Chris Martin earns that in, like, one concert. Probably not even that. It's probably like 10 minutes of one concert. So you kind of have to rule him out. So then it's really tricky because then you've kind of got to think of musicians who are very well known but their stars, like, faded a little bit. And annoyingly, I had thought of Lily Allen, but in the time that I thought of Lily Allen, she's had a very successful album. So I don't know if she now gets ruled out, but I did think Lily Allen was a very good choice because name recognition is very strong with her. Like, a lot of people have heard of Lily Allen. Like, you just need to say the name and people have heard of her. But she's not necessarily selling out stadiums at the minute. But someone like her that I've thought of is James Blunt. I think a lot of people have heard of James Blunt. But is he selling out Wembley? I don't think so. And James Blunt as well, some people might have kind of seen, like, on his social media, he's got a very sick sense of humour. So I think he's got that interesting thing where you want people that their public perception is very nice, but they have a different side to them. A couple of people in this category could be someone like Alan Jones. Like, he's got that name recognition, but he's not, like, megastar kind of level. Michael Ball, I think, as well, kind of fits into that category. Any of McFly could do it, and I think they could be good on it. The problem with McFly is they have done a lot of reality shows. I mean, all four of them have appeared on various, like, Strictly, I'm said to get me out of here. So they don't fit that thing that the producers want, where they want people new to reality shows. Similarly, I've seen, like, people saying about Spice Girls. I think, any of them could be good. I mean, obviously unlikely to get, like, Victoria Beckham, for example, but like a Mel C or Mel B, that, like, yeah, definitely possible. Girls Aloud, I was thinking. Someone like Nadine Coyle could be good because she's Irish, so then she's kind of bringing something a bit different and she kind of ticks that box. But yeah, apart from that, I was kind of struggling with musicians. So those are kind of like my top choices, but only because I'm not as into music, so it's kind of harder for me to, like, think of people. And sports people are good because a lot of people have heard of them, you know, like the Olympics and football. They all get good viewing figures. So someone who is, like, top on my list for this is Mo Farah. I think out of, like, British sports people, he's probably one of the most famous, and he's got, like, you know, a kind of catchphrase and stuff. Yeah, Mo Farah, I think, is very, very possible. Similarly, Jill Scott, I feel like is very possible, the former, like, England professional footballer. I feel like she's very likely as well. She's the kind of person I want to get. Jessica Ennis as well, I think, very strong chance. And then, like, kind of people that I was thinking are, like, good personalities from, like, sports. Someone like Micah Richards is very, very funny. He's one of the people you kind of see on Match of the Day a lot, and does a podcast about football. The rest is football. He seems very likeable. He's very bubbly. He might bring a bit of that kind of Joe Marler kind of feel. So yeah, I think that's a good shout. And someone else I thought of was Peter Crouch. I mean, name recognition wise, a lot of people have heard of him. He's quite a unique person, like, physically. Yeah, and he's got that kind of, like, funny personality. He could be too rich and famous, but he might be borderline. Like, he does turn up on like Paddy Power adverts and stuff, and you kind of think, well, if you need the money, if you're doing that, maybe you do Celebrity Traitors. Likewise, I think Paralympians have a very high chance of going on the show. Ellie Simmons, I think, would be very good. She's got like a really good personality to her. I believe she's also retired from competing professionally, so I think she's a very strong chance. And she also did a comic relief Traitors sketch. I feel like she's a strong chance. Similarly, I think Johnny Peacock could be quite good. Kadina Cox, I think, could be a very good shout. I think a lot of Paralympians would be very good, but I think those three would be like the top three to look at. And then again, it does provide that representation for disability as well. Similarly, they could be looking at someone like Alex Brooker from The Last Leg. I think he'd be very good. Jack Carroll, who's been on Coronation Street and Britain's Got Talent. I think he could be quite good on it, a bit of an interesting person. He's also a bit younger, so he kind of ticks that age box as well, because we do need some younger people. Chris McCausland would be brilliant on it. He obviously had a very like successful run on Strictly Come Dancing the other year. He ticks that disability box, but he, you know, is so much more than that. Obviously all these people are so much more than that, but also I think they do want to represent people that are not normally represented on TV, so I think that's why they've got strong chances. Chris McCausland is like hilarious. He'd be very good value. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. As we're talking about comedians, other comedians I think are very high possibilities. Obviously Bob Mortimer we've already spoken about. I think he will be honestly at the top of their list for who they want on the show. Going down from Bob, I think Rich Dyer would probably be very high up on the list. He'd obviously be very good on it. He was good on Last One Laughing as well. And you have got to look at other shows, like other popular shows, and kind of see who they're casting, which is why I've looked so much at Taskmaster. But also Last One Laughing has been a big hit for Amazon Prime recently. So the producers will be looking at these things, like who's done well on shows recently. Stephen Merchant would be very good, I think. He's been on the Comic Relief Traitors as well. Yeah, he'd be very good value, but could be too rich and famous for it. Just like general people who have been very good on Taskmaster and comedians alike, Ardal O'Hanlon, I think, would be very good. He ticks the Irish box. But also, the interesting thing about Ardal O'Hanlon is he has played a TV detective on Death in Paradise. And I think that's something the producers are looking at. I can't help thinking that the reason Mark Bernard has been on the show this year is because the producers have gone, wouldn't it be good if we had someone from Line of Duty? Because the whole premise of Line of Duty is trying to find people who are lying. So I think that's how they've come to him, because he's a very random choice, Mark Bernard. Like, I knew of him, and I thought he was great beforehand. He's done some Doctor Who stuff, which has been very good, Doctor Who audio stuff. He was a very random choice, and I can't help thinking it's just because of Line of Duty. And maybe they approached some other people from Line of Duty and they said no, and then they've come to Mark Bernard instead. So I think they are thinking about these things, like who would be kind of an interesting meta choice to pick. And a TV detective would be very good. That's why like someone like Benedict Cumberbatch would be a very interesting choice. You know, he's played Sherlock Holmes, so like you'd expect him to be good at like deducting things. But Benedict Cumberbatch, like I say, is too famous. So who are other TV detectives they could look at? And I think Ardal O'Hanlon would be a very strong choice. I think they could look at other people from Death in Paradise. They could be looking at Ben Miller, they could be looking at Ralph Little, Chris Marshall. But also, if you're looking at TV detectives, I think a good shout could be Alan Davies. He played Jonathan Creek on TV. I think he'd be a good shout. He could be possible. But other people who I think have been very, very good on Taskmaster that they could be looking at is Fern Brady, Sam Campbell, Judy Love, James Acaster, Mike Wozniak, Sanjeev Bhaskar. These are some kind of recent people that have been very entertaining on that show, and I think they will be looking at. Someone like Sam Campbell, he's like one of the funniest people I've seen on TV in like the last 5 years. They must be looking at people like him. And James Acaster would be like a slam dunk. He was absolutely brilliant on Taskmaster. Likewise Mike Wozniak, likewise Fern Brady, like all of these people have been very, very good value. And I think they will be looking at them. In that kind of comedian category as well, Bill Bailey, I think could be quite good. Another category of people that they will definitely be looking at is influencers. We're seeing this more and more. on reality shows that they are now turning to people who are famous on YouTube or famous on TikTok and are casting them in these shows. So recently, I'm a Celebrity to Get Me Out of Here have cast, I think he's called Angry Ginge, is he called? We obviously had Nico this year on Celebrity Traitors. These kind of people are popping up now, and you've kind of got to look at big names from the internet now on as strong possibilities. So I think in that category, Richard Osman suggested this, so I can't take credit for this, but Amelia de Moldenberg, I think she'd be very good. She is the host of Chicken Shop Date. She's got a kind of quirky, weird energy to her. But as far as like internet personalities go, she is probably like one of the most well known at the minute. And she's kind of moving into the mainstream quite a lot. Vicstar, I don't know him very well myself, but he is one of the sidemen for KSI. I think he will be someone they're looking at. He's been on Michael McIntyre's The Wheel. That's another thing, you've got to look at shows like that as well, The Wheel. Joe Marler, the only reason I know who Joe Marler is because of The Wheel. Because I don't watch rugby. But the only reason I recognise him is because he's been on that show. So they will be looking at people who have been on like things like The Wheel as well, and people have done well on it. And Joe Marler has been very funny on The Wheel. And also someone I thought of who has like blown up massively in recent years on the internet, Francis Bourgeois. He's a train enthusiast, but his videos have gone like super viral. And he's quirky, he's a bit strange, he's well known, and he's probably under 30. So he ticks a lot of boxes, and I could see that happening. And finally, actors. Danny Dyer, like I've said before, I'd already thought of him before I found out he was rumoured, so it's really annoying. It makes it feel like I've just like copied that idea. But Danny Dyer, I think, could be very good on this. He's actually quite naturally funny when you see him in interviews. He's also well known. He's been on like a big soap. He's been on EastEnders, so a lot of people will know who he is. He's got that good name recognition. And like I say, I think pairing him up with his daughter would be very inspired. And then you're kind of getting a double whammy as well, because Danny Dyer must be like in his 50s, right? So he's kind of like appealing to slightly older people. Younger people, they might like the fact that his daughter's on it as well. You're kind of like crossing the generational divide by doing that. When I was thinking about this, like family kind of combos, Danny Dyer and Danny Dyer, it's so stupid that they got the same name. They were like the first people I thought of, and then annoyingly the people I thought of after that, and they will be thinking about this, is Bradley Walsh and his son. Bradley Walsh, I mean, he ticks that household name category. A lot of people like him. He's very funny. And if they wanted that family connection, there's his son as well. And they're both hosting BBC's Gladiators right now. I just laugh because I don't like his son. I find his son really annoying. And I don't know if it's just because of the nepotism aspect. You know, he's a nepo baby. The only reason he's got that job on Gladiators is because his dad's Bradley Walsh. So even though I wouldn't necessarily want them to be on the show, they'll be thinking about it. And I think Bradley Walsh's name will come up. Definitely. But anyway, back to actors. Matt Berry, I think, is someone that people would like to be on the show. He's one of those people in the last few years who's really blown up, and he's just becoming more and more famous. Michael Sheen, I think, would be very good. And when you think of Michael Sheen, you can't help but also then think of David Tennant. And like, I'm like a massive Doctor Who fan, like I'm obsessed with David Tennant. But like, weirdly, I'm not sure if he would do it. Whereas Michael Sheen, I think he would. And I've seen evidence to suggest that he's a fan of the show. Apparently his wife bought him like a cameo from Diane on the Traitors. So I believe he's a fan. And if he's a fan of it, it's more likely to get him. So Michael Sheen, I think, is a very strong contender. And like I say, David Tennant as well. But I don't know. I'd love him to be on. I think he'd be a very exciting get. I don't know if it would actually happen. Whereas Michael Sheen, I think, is more realistic. Other just like actors who I think would be very good in the similar line of David Tennant, like talking about Doctor Who, Catherine Tate, I think, could be very good on this. And she's one of those people, again, she's very naturally funny. She's very well known. A lot of people have heard of her. Lenny Rush, is someone who would be an interesting choice. He's very young. I don't know if he'd be too young to actually be allowed on the show. I think he's currently like 15. Other just like big names, kind of from the acting world. Joanna Lumley, Jennifer Saunders, Dawn French, any of those three would be very good. If we're thinking about Gavin and Stacey, say if they approach Ruth Jones and she says no, I think other people from Gavin and Stacey who could be quite good on this would be like Rob Brydon. Yeah, he'd be good value. And Joanna Page, I think would be quite good. If we're looking at like national treasures who are also actors, I think like Nigel Havers is a strong chance, kind of fitting into that like Celia Emery kind of category. Also in the household name category, Nadia Hussein from Bake Off. I feel like she could be a strong choice. She's quite funny when you see her on shows. She's quite entertaining. And I think a lot of people like fell in love with her on Bake Off. Like, she's a very likeable person. So again, like, she would be good for that faithful role where you need likeable people. Mal Gedroich, I think, is very possible. Likewise, her partner, Sue. And that's just about everyone. But there is one other person who I find very interesting, which is Richard Osman. He's clearly a massive fan of the show. Like, they do the after show podcast on the Restless Entertainment for the Traitors, and he talks about it a lot. And I think he's definitely been approached. And his like comment about it is, I would only do it if I'm a traitor. It's a bit of a weird comment to make, because if he ever does appear on it, if people have heard that, then they might know he's going to be a traitor. He would be very good. And I mean, he's written books about detectives, you know, trying to solve murders, murder mysteries. So he's a very obvious choice. He likes the show, he's written about murder mysteries, the producers definitely want him on it, and I think he would be good. He's very quick-witted, and he's intelligent, so he ticks a lot of the boxes, but it just seems like he doesn't really want to do it. So I don't know if that's him just like trying to play cool, and we will see him on it at some point. He is like one of the most obvious people you'd get on it, so I feel like it might happen one day. I feel like the producers might convince him, and like I said, he'd be like one of the top people I'd want on it. It'd be like Richard Osman and Bob Mortimer. Yeah, I feel like at some point it will happen. So those are all my predictions for Celebrity Traitors Season 2. It'd be interesting to find out like what other people think. Like if you've got any ideas, like post them in the comments. It's been really fun trying to predict all these people. I'm just really hoping that I get some hits. You know, not views, I mean as in like, I'm really hoping I get some of these right. I just want the satisfaction of saying I predicted that. And I think, obviously I have named a lot of names, so there's a high chance at least one of them will come up. But definitely people like Alison Hammond, watch out for them. Mo Farah, Bob Mortimer, some of these people are definitely going to be on it, at least eventually. You know, if this keeps running for series after series, you're going to see them on, I promise you. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, can't wait to find out. But yeah, thank you for watching this video, and there'll be hopefully more videos to come, so keep watching.